Hey everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Optimizing Your Practice with Invivo7. I'm Mike Joyce, Director of Customer Success here at Osteoid. We want to thank you guys so much for joining us today. We're really excited to share what we've been working on. So we have a great session lined up for everyone. We'll kick things off with a quick overview of our company and products, then dive into a live software demo. At the end, we'll have time for Q&A. So if any questions pop up along the way, no problem. And feel free to drop them in the Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screen. We'll get to as many as we can during the breaks or at the end. Also, this webinar is being recorded. All right, so before we jump into the demo, let me give you guys a quick intro into our company and what we do. So who are we? Here at Osteoid, who was formerly Anatomize Dental, we've been helping dental professionals reform treatment planning for over 20 years. From day one, we've been focused on making digital dentistry easier, faster, and smarter. We were one of the first to bring advanced 3D imaging and real-time cloud collaboration into everyday practice. And we've kept that innovation spirit ever since. Today, thousands and thousands of dentists and specialists around the world rely on our tools every day, not just because they're powerful, but because they're reliable and easy to use. We've also integrated AI-driven and cloud-based technology into our solutions, helping practices work faster, plan smarter, and deliver better results, whether you're in general dentistry, surgery, or somewhere in between. All right, let's talk about simplifying license management. So, managing software licenses across multiple locations can be challenging. We get it. That's why our new systems make it easy. You can manage all your licenses from one dashboard, no matter how many locations you've got. Need to assign a license just a couple of clicks away, and you're done. No more manual transfers or activation requests. It's all automatic. This saves your team time, cuts down on admin work, and makes sure each office gets what they need when they need it. All right, so let's take a quick look here at this visual, which shows you how flexible our licensing setup is. So option 1, which is on the left here, gives you consistent licensing across all your locations. IT admins can assign a set number of seats per office. No need for each office to manage license separately. It's all centralized and seamless. Option 2, here on the right, is a bit more flexible. You can adjust seat counts for different offices, IT assign seats as needed. No overages, no wasted licenses. It's quick, clean, and easy to scale. All right, we have one more visual to show you. This is the cool one. So yeah, let's take a look at this. So this diagram compares the old school way of managing data with what's possible using our new licensing system. Managing one dental office is hard enough. Managing 10 or 100, well, that's not easy. So from hardware to compliance to team communication, there's a lot to juggle. But our Invivo suite brings all of that together, helping you stay organized, reduce the chaos, and plan treatments more effectively. So before I hand it off to our presenter, I have one more slide to go through with you guys. So let's talk about how our Invivo suite can empower a DSO. So with Invivo Workspace, you can manage multiple locations way easier. Everything's in one place. User access, reporting, licenses, all of it. It's all right there. You get the flexibility to give each office exactly what it needs. No more paying for licenses you're not using. In addition, since it's all cloud-based, your teams can work together in real time, no matter where they are, while staying secure and compliant. Best of all, you don't need to rip out your existing systems. Our platform fits right in with what you already have. So what's the bottom line? Well, we help your DSO run smoother, smarter, and more consistently, so you can focus on delivering great patient care. All right, so as I mentioned before, we have a great live demonstration planned for all of you. And the person who will be doing the demo is our senior product specialist, Anna Lahr. She's going to walk you all through a live demonstration of Invivo, as well as our cloud-based solution, Invivo Workspace. All right, take it away, Anna, and thanks again to everyone for being here.
Hello again, and thank you for joining us today. I am going to start us off in the desktop application's latest version, Invivo 7.2.3. And then as we progress, as Mike said, we will be taking a closer look into our Invivo Workspace platform and the tools available to you through this platform's integrations. Now, if it's been a while, or if you've never seen Invivo 7 or this particular version before, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Invivo 7 to you. Now, along with a whole host of added features and user interface improvements, Invivo incorporates integrations that help large and small organizations essentially navigate and manage their treatment workflows and patient outcomes by providing a unified software solution for comprehensive 3D image viewing and treatment planning. So as Mike said, our software suite comes right from the gate in a comprehensive way. So using the new user interface here, we've got some enhancements for ease of use and functionality that fit a broad application of specialty as standard for our application. So whether it's implant planning, orthodontics, radiology, general practice, or even veterinarian applications, which we've seen quite a few users tap into, the software is built for you to customize and utilize in a way that you see fit and to fit your large organizations, whether it's across different locations, to have the same model for every location. Now let's crack into the software using the new user interface that we're seeing here and run through a few cases together. I'm going to briefly give just a high-level overview of some of these features in regard to some of our more commonly used treatment planning modalities. The first being our implant planning functionality. So we'll dive right in here to this specific case that I've got up. Where we're actually going to be starting in what we call the arch tab. Now this tab is specific for isolating the arches where we see most commonly we're isolating the maxillary or the mandibular arch or both simultaneously, which is a function of the software, to get our lovely slice panoramic image below as well as our arch cross-sectional views here. Now this layout can be customized to the viewer and to the practices that are using it. I'm using the layout functionality in the toolbar, but typically what we're doing here is isolating the arch using our arch spline, using the nodes here to customize the views that we're seeing below, which is currently, again, in our slice view, or switching it to one of our more commonly used views, the X-ray panoramic view. And from here, going ahead and isolating a nerve canal if we're working on the mandibular, or taking a look at the sinuses if we're working on the maxillary arches there. For this case example, we'll go ahead and just isolate our nerve here. I went ahead and clicked New Nerve, and I'm just placing points along that nerve canal here. And what we have within the software is a great tool to align our cross-sectional views as well. So if we are wanting to finalize our nerve canal by exiting out the menta foramen, we most certainly can, and then right-click to finish. So it's quite quick and easy to go ahead and isolate a nerve. We have great training videos online to help you isolate your arch spine as well, to guide you through that. Now, typically, again, from an implant planning perspective, or even from just a quick diagnosis perspective, measurement tools up here at the top under each tab layout. So if we're wanting to take a couple of quick measurements to see what type of length of implant we might be wanting to place in a specific area or region that we are taking a look at, or maybe the width of the bone, it's very quick for you to do so from within the arch tab. Now, again, following along on that implant planning functionality, jumping right into the implant view. Now, this tab here, we have a couple of different set layouts that we do see a whole host of users fluctuate between. I myself like to use both commonly. So our panel implant view is quite popular, especially if we're looking to place multiple implants quite quickly, set up parallel groups if we're doing full arch cases, break those parallel groups if we need to, and make fine-tune adjustments using the cross-sectional views that we do see populate after placement. And then we can quickly just pop right over to our 3D view again to encompass an additional view here down on the lower quadrant, and then go ahead and select our specific implant manufacturers, different product lines, the different diameters and lengths that we are looking to set. And then the nice thing that I do like to highlight here for implant planning friends is our view presets, which can be set up and customized to visually represent different data that we are incorporating into our plan. So if we cycle through some of mine here, we can see different components such as trajectory, long axis will come into play to help guide you through that plan. And these can be set up across different locations if we are working with lots of workstations and lots of locations following the same type of protocols and workflows when it comes to those planning procedures. Now, in addition to this particular tab, we see a lot of users incorporating our surgical guide services as well. So with that service, we do include a digital study model for our restorations in place. So when we are working with our teams, it's very easy for you to confirm restoratively where we want to be with these implants, do some minor tweaks here as I am to get things aligned and in the correct position for your plan before you have that guide fabricated. Now, another commonly used workflow that we see our software utilize in, just to kind of give us that quick overview of feature functionality, is that orthodontic space. So I do have another case for us here that I can pull up real fast. Now, in addition to our more commonly seen section tab, which is kind of like that home page to a 3D image, where we can see our cross-sectional views, axial-saddle-coronal, adjust our orientation for the patient to align things really nicely before we jump into other tabs. For our orthodontic friends, whether it's looking at the airway or jumping right into the TMJ tab, the software is going to allow us to really easily isolate those specific anatomy structures. So for instance, for our condylar anatomy, we can go ahead and set down these focal troughs here, reposition them as necessary, and get really nice frontal as well as lateral slice views here that we can then capture over to our gallery. Now, even in our implant planning workflows, this is a particular functionality that is available throughout the different tabs of the software. So that adds to that case presentation piece, or if we're sharing this case between locations or different colleagues where we're working together with each other, this functionality to be able to capture images to what we call the gallery tab and share them easily through a method that we're going to go over in just a moment is a really great quality to keep everybody on the same page when we're working through a specific case workflow. Now, in addition to TMJ, when we're looking at our 3D analysis, or excuse me, our orthodontic planning, jumping into the 3D analysis tab, this is where we've seen a lot of improvements when it comes to our software, specifically with that AI functionality in our static engine. Now, there are a lot of components to this tab that our users are utilizing, but the main component is that cephalometric tracing element, whereas we can see here, we're applying our commonly known 2D cephalometric tracing elements to our 3D data to then gather the information that we need to then assess that patient and get them through to the next phase of their treatment planning. Now, where we're bringing in the elements of our automatic AI tracing landmarks here, we do come to our create tracing task list here where we can do things manually as we normally would have done in previous iterations of this tab. But the auto tracing functionality here is something that is new, and usually it's a really great tool. It takes about 30 seconds to complete, so we'll have doctors go ahead and click that, especially if they're using the Steiner analysis, which is what is incorporating into that auto tracing function. They'll click that button, go ahead and grab a coffee, see another patient, come back and see that it's already completed. Or if perhaps we're working on a couple of cases, we can go ahead and use that functionality to get them through them quite quickly and with ease. Now, there are other tabs that we most certainly do incorporate into the orthodontic workflow as well, since we have them available to us as a standard for the software. But since I know we're kind of trying to keep within our time limit here, I'm actually going to showcase one of our new workflows, which is our veterinarian workflows. So if we are looking at our animal friends here, if it's focusing on the dentistry side of animal care, so our head and neck scan specifically, or if we're looking at full body scans, exotic animals, giraffes, leopards, that type of thing, hamsters. Invivo is already equipped to service that type of specialty. The volume render tab specifically gives us really great views, whether we're looking at the internal anatomy structures of a full body scan for one of our pets, or if we are focusing again more on the dentition side of things. The same applications that apply to our human anatomy structures apply greatly to these veterinarian specialty fields as well. So similarly, where we saw in the arch tab, where we were able to isolate the arches on our human anatomy, we can do that in the same way for our animal friends as well, and use other portions of the software, for instance, TMJ, to isolate a simultaneous view of our right and left. Maybe it's the shoulders, maybe it's the ears, for our animal friends to further analyze what might be happening in their anatomy. Perfect. Now I did cruise through the software. We're happy to go through it at the end. If there's any specific questions, I'm happy to go right back through things feature-wise to kind of highlight what we've been working on and what's come out with the latest version. I'd like to, on that note, take us back to what's new with Invivo specifically. And now there have been some added features dedicated to the admin level permissions, which can be found actually in the preference settings of the software. So if we come to our file dropdown, go right to our preferences here. This is where our large organizations or our IT friends, specifically those that might be working in academics that need a little bit more admin permission related functionality when it comes to the software that's installed across the different locations or different computers, we can actually adjust our admin settings here by coming to the tab specifically. Here we're going to see a couple of added functions and features that may look new to some of our folks here looking. Specifically, if we're toggling on certain elements like display or file manager, we're specifically restricting some of these elements when it comes to our standard users using the software. So things like being able to adjust the display here and how things interact with what we're viewing, as well as being able to no longer adjust our open or save file paths. These specific settings will restrict those particulars when it comes to our standard users of the software. So that specifically is nice for those where we need to have a little bit more control of what users are doing within the software itself. Now, in addition, I do want to point out our PACS confirmation or PACS configuration here as well, which is new. There is a drop down here that will specify different selections that we can toggle on as well to kind of put it in an admin only type of setting. So we have a couple different settings here, the standard, the full PACS, or the export to PACS only. So when we are working with a PACS software, this will, again, kind of adjust the level of rights that the standard users have to operate from within the software, whether that's opening files and saving files locally, or only allowing them to pull and push from a PACS server specifically. So those admin features are new to the software and are available to our users that are wanting to have a little bit more control over what their users are doing from within the software itself. Now, while we're in our drop-down menus up here, you may notice the account drop-down. If you've been an Invivo user for a long time, or if you're new, this is one of the newest drop-downs to the software. This allows the user to not only use the application, but use the sign-in functionality of the application, which makes for an increase in flexibility when using the desktop application itself. Now, what this means in a nutshell, and I think Mike touched on it before, is that we can essentially install Invivo where we need it to be. And with the sign-in functionality, we can gain instant access to our full licensing suite through this particular function. So we're no longer tied to a specific workstation in a sense. As long as we've got it installed, we can essentially sign in there within a concurrent limit of what we have available. And when we're finished with our session, we can simply click this account drop down. And then as you see there, go ahead and sign out to release or end access to the software suite. Now, it's not necessary for you to do that all the time. You can most certainly leave it signed in as well, and it will go ahead and maintain itself. But if you'd like a little bit more flexibility in moving around to your installed desktop applications, you can use this function to sign in and sign out as needed. Now, in addition to having the flexibility to use Invivo where you need it, you can also use the updated integration between the desktop application and Invivo Workspace to make your data as flexible as you are with your desktop application. Now, for, again, those who have multi-practice sites, or maybe we want to take our work home with us, which happens to me quite a lot because I do work from home. We can most certainly utilize the integration here through the file send file. Now, send file has actually been a part of the software since 6.0, but it's seen an improvement with its integration since its iteration in version 7. Now, through the file send file functionality and its updates, we can actually save work to our Invivo Workspace case dashboard for easy access later in different locations to using the Invivo Workspace platform, which we'll be getting into in just a moment. Or if we need to share this case with a friend, or perhaps bring it back later if we're wanting to store some data up into our case dashboard and then browse for it later by bringing it down through the browse functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and use this function. So I'll do the file send file here. Now in the initial window here, this is just asking us which file type we are wanting to either share or upload. Now typically my recommendation is 2 of these options, but there are 4 to give you some added flexibility. Obviously, our first file here is the Invivo file format, or .inv, and this is going to help us save a file or send a file that encompasses our workup data. So any type of measurements that we've made, implant planning, segmentation, 3D supplemental tracing that we've completed, gallery images that we've saved, those are all encompassed in that Invivo file format. And that's really great if we're sharing from office to office where we have the software, or from colleague to colleague where we're using Invivo, or using Invivo Workspace Web Viewer, which is a little bit of foreshadowing there. And then the other option that is pretty typical for our users is this 4th option here, which is a multi-file DICOM with a .dcm extension. This is just that raw file format. It's really great whether we're using Invivo Workspace for our viewer, or if we're sharing to perhaps a colleague, or maybe even an owner or a patient in particular, where they just want the raw DICOM to be able to open and view in whatever software they have on that recipient side. We'll go ahead and select Invivo. Now in the next screen here that is going to pop up in just a moment here, I do apologize, my internet is just a little bit slow here in the California region, as always. We're going to be wanting to essentially put in who we're sharing this to. Now I'm on a specific login here, so I'm actually going to go ahead and share this with one of my Invivo Workspace accounts that I've set up for this webinar here. But you will notice that there are a couple of different checkboxes in the send to window. We can most certainly send to a patient or an owner at the same time by putting in their email here. This is for our recipient. But if we were to deselect this and simply upload this case, or click send with just this completed, or perhaps some notes entered, this will just go ahead and upload the scan directly to our own Invivo Workspace account without sending it. So this is a great way for you to easily send your case right up to your Invivo Workspace platform, kind of like a backup, so to speak, of your data, especially if you're wanting to take it somewhere else, open it somewhere else, or be able to pull it down quite easily. If you're storing a bunch of CD type data, it's a great way for you to just very easily, quickly open your case and then push it right to your case dashboard. In this case, since I'm on one of my other accounts, I'm going to go ahead and enter in, as I mentioned, one of the emails here that I'll be using. You can select a specialty if you happen to know that. In this case, I'll just say it's an imaging center. And then in the notes here, I can go ahead and provide any type of information which will later be displayed in our discussion fields on our Invivo Workspace platform. So if there's any information pertaining to the case or that you want to remind yourself of later, just like we can do in our gallery image captures, we can do that here in our send file. So we'll go ahead, we click send there. It's going to do a couple of upload processes. The first one is where it's sending it right up to the case dashboard, and then it's going to do an extra bit of thinking here as it uploads. And it came right to my other screen. There it is. So we've got it successfully sent. Even when you're uploading to your own case dashboard, you'll get this message, and that means we've got the green light to go. And now that we've sent that case to an Invivo Workspace account, let's go ahead and take another look from this perspective and spend some time in the web application. So I'll go ahead and I'll minimize some of these cases here. And we're going to jump right in. So I've got that same account. I've logged in. I've gone to invivoworkspace.com and I've signed in using our specific sign in here for our webinar account. Speaking of sharing, so we've saved that file, we've sent it to this specific Invivo Workspace case dashboard here. There are actually, what we're seeing here, a few that are awaiting approval or acceptance by me as the recipient of these cases. This is what they look like when they come in to your case dashboard. This one here is that one that we just sent today. We can tell because it has today's date on it. If we go ahead and click that specific line item, we can go ahead and see who's sharing this case with us, what scan details are kind of coming from either the anonymized or the patient details that are coming in. So we can see the case there. We can see a brief look at what the description message might have been. And then we can either decline or approve that case file. I'll go ahead and approve it in this particular case. Now, while that is uploading, it doesn't take too much time, but just to give a brief introduction to the case dashboard here, which is the homepage of our Invivo Workspace platform. Everything in here when it comes to the scans that are uploaded or received are organized in what we call our patient folders. So these patient folders can contain anything from the scans themselves, which this one in particular just has the scan, to things like multiple scans, maybe a pre-op and a post-op, or even PDF images if we've exported images out or we've created a report, which I believe this one might encompass some of those details. It can also include things like an STL file format or data set that pertains to that patient as well. So you can encompass a lot that has to do with that specific patient for that specific case workup into that patient folder from within the case dashboard. And this appears as well in the software itself whenever we are browsing from Invivo Workspace. So it'll look the same, and we can pop open those patient folders in the same way from right within the software as we can here on the platform. So I'll go ahead and I'll accept this one as well. And we can see that one actually did include both a scan as well as a PDF report from a radiologist there. So we can see a little bit of a difference of the file types that it can encompass. Now coming back to the one that we shared previously. So if we do have this one, whether it's popped open or if it's in its kind of dormant state, so to speak, we can come here to what we call the stoplight menu. And as I mentioned, that discussion field from before, this is how we can go ahead and toggle that on and get a nice view of that instant message type of discussion board where we can go back and forth from office to office or practitioner to practitioner to let each other know next steps for that treatment, stay on the same page when it comes to what we're looking at or what we would suggest. Maybe we're adjusting an implant plan, or we're suggesting a specific treatment course for ortho or endo, that type of thing. It's a really great way to have that kind of instant message reply back and forth between your, again, practitioners or offices or colleagues when it comes to that specific case. Now, in terms of being notified of these replies here, it's usually via email. So you'll get an email notification saying, hey, Anna has let you know, has replied back to your discussion, take a look, and you'll be prompted to sign back in and view that discussion there. So everything is encrypted until you are right within the platform itself, so you're not able to access those messages from the email. Now, as I mentioned before, it's a great way to host a backup of files as well. We do see this commonly used in that way. So whether you're sharing files between offices or wanting to use this to store a backup of data, you can most certainly utilize it in that way as well. And everything, again, can be organized by patient folder. So anything pertaining to that patient, whether it's, again, a pre-op, post-op, or multiple scans for that same patient, we can go ahead and do so. Now, an element here that we can kind of see if we're hovering over things is that preview or view option. So it's a little bit different if we're hovering over a PDF versus an actual 3D image. What we've built into the Invivo Workspace platform is what we call the web viewer function here. So if we were to click this preview option, I believe I've got one open, but usually loads fairly quickly depending on your internet speed. We can get the same type of reference images as we can, or very similar to our 3D software on the desktop application. So this is, again, really great if we're uploading the scans, maybe just wanting to quickly pop them open in Office B to take a quick look at what we might be looking at, whether that's captured images from the gallery, depending on the treatment plan, or wanting to be able to scroll through that 3D in real time, chairside without having the desktop application there. So it's a great way to get that scan and provide a viewer, whether it's to a colleague or if you yourself are wanting to use it in multiple practices. Now you can most certainly open it on a tablet or a phone. The only caveat to that is those are slightly smaller than our typical computer screens. So that's the main takeaway from that is navigating a small screen can be a little bit of a challenge, but since it's a web-based viewer, it can be opened in that way. Kind of jumping back and forth here, I'll go into this implant planning case where we have a specific set of pre-planned implants, just to quickly go through the web viewer for us before jumping into another portion of the platform. So you'll notice the tabs at the top similarly named to what we saw in our desktop application. So similar to our section tab, we have our axial coronal and axial sagittal coronal slices and our 3D rendering, and all is fully manipulatable from within this tab. But we also see things like our arch section tab, so we can get a very similar view of what we're seeing there and manipulate it as well to see that nerve canal or panoramic image for wanting to see it in the X-ray view there. And lighten things up. If we're jumping into our implant tab, this one is just a little bit different than our full software here, where we're actually looking at pre-planned implants. So whether we planned the case and sent it up to our case dashboard or shared it, we can go ahead and quickly reassess any planned implants from within this tab. So this is more of a visual aid when we're re-looking at things that we have already planned from within the implant tab of the desktop application. And same for our model and gallery tabs. If we're working with our Invivo model team, if we've created STL models from within the software, we're able to view and manipulate them. And then obviously within the gallery tab, that's going to store all of the different information that we've already captured. So again, a great way to reassess, bring everything back up from the full software for just quick visualization purposes. All right, I'm going to close some of these down here. And let's keep going, and we're going to take a look at this platform and how it can help us manage users our licensing and multiple offices in a very efficient way. So obviously at its core, Invivo Workspace is a great way for sharing our scans, storing our scans, as well as viewing our scans. But the addition that we have seen over the last year or so is its incorporation and integration into that desktop application. So for our admin users specifically, and you can see that here at the top, this particular user is an admin. We have a lovely little drop-down menu where we can actually come to this admin section, and it will provide us with an admin level view of the different products that we have, so licensing and subscription, as well as a view for our organization. So who's in our organization, what access to the software they have, and how we invite additional members to our org. So admin users here have access to this specific page. Let's go ahead and take a look at these products here just to give a quick overview. You can see there's quite a few, and they vary in the number of quantity that they do have. So in this right column here, the out of, we're seeing the total number of licenses that we have available for concurrent use. In the next column over to the left, CUs, which means how many licenses are we actively signed in on, specifically on workstations here where we've launched the software and signed in. And then obviously the different type we're working with. So whether that's a subscription model, here we have a couple of different monthly subscriptions versus our perpetual licensing types, whether that's the Invivo desktop app, the Treatment Studio application, or the add-ons here, which we have a 3D analysis available for us, which is also actively in use. Now, some of our large organizations may see a little bit of a difference in what they're seeing here in their admin products. And that's something that is fully customizable for these large practices that have multiple locations. We can divide our licensing up in the way that we're seeing here so that we can very quickly and easily assign these licenses to each location. And that gives them access to that specific group or pool of licenses. Or, as we're seeing at the top, just as an example, if we're wanting to encompass licensing across all of our locations into a single licensing pool that everybody pulls from, we can do that as well. So the flexibility here is something that is available to our large organization users, or even mid-tier or small tier. If we want to break things up or keep things together licensing wise, that's a great functionality here to help you organize things further. Now, as far as accessing the installers for our software here, if we were to click one of these line items here, whether it's this top one for our Invivo desktop app or this lower one, going to remain the same when it comes to accessing that downloads link. The installer is easily accessible through this platform as well for admin users. So clicking this downloads links is going to bring us right to our installers page where we can then go ahead and download and then run the installers as needed. This is a great way, specifically if we're needing to replace computers or move computers. We can most certainly access the installer very quickly and easily that way. And you'll also notice this lovely button down below, which says Manage Desktop License. This is how we can easily deactivate active sessions or active licenses on specific workstations. So for example, you get the blue screen of death on a computer, or it's decommissioned before we can actively sign that computer out. You no longer have to really reach out to us for that. We can simply go to our Manage Desktop Licensing. And since we've got that pool of 5 selected specifically, you can kind of see it in the background there, we can go ahead and see in our activation history where it is active. You can see this particular user, Jane Doe, has this license active on a device named Friday, which is my personal PC. And then we can go ahead and say, okay, we replaced that computer. We'll go ahead to head over to our currently in use, come to our drop-down, select that specific device, and then hit deactivate. This is also a great way for our IT admins to make sure that licensing is staying where it needs to be when it comes to activations. Sometimes some users may take it home with them on accident or take it with them to a specific course. And this helps rein it back in as well to make sure that it's active on the devices that we need it to be active on and that nobody is taking it elsewhere, so to speak. Now, if we go ahead and click on perhaps the TX Studio line item here and go to Manage Desktop Licenses, we'll see that that activation history is actually a little bit different than the other pool of licenses. So again, we're seeing the specific user that has that license active, the device it's active on, when it was activated, and we can come here and deselect that or deactivate that device if necessary. Perfect. All right, so we're going to jump into the admin organization page. Now we have a whole host of different licensing pools that we can work with. There's different ways that we can assign these licenses to users. We can use a generic singular login that is shared by the offices if that is the best workflow for your practice, or we can invite individual users that are based off of perhaps locations to help us further identify where these licenses are going to be used and who should be using those licensing pools. So this comes in handy again when we're working with multiple practices, multiple sites, maybe even just multiple doctors wanting their own sign-in credentials. We can go ahead and invite these members and then add them to our organization and then assign the licensing to them. So I'm going to go ahead and invite one of my users here that I have in mind. And we can do that, again, we're in our admin organization page. We can click invite member. We'll go ahead and invite one of our courses emails. Again, selecting specialty, we'll just say it's lab. We can add as many members as we'd like in one go, so we can continue adding their information and then clicking add before we click invite. So if we do have a kind of a list that we need to get through, we can do that right here and then send out that invitation. And we can see here that the email I invited, invivocourses@gmail, is now pending acceptance and permission. Now, if all goes well, I should be able to refresh my Gmail here and see that invitation. So giving you a little bit of a perspective from the recipient side of that invite, I can see here I've got that email. It says I've been invited by Osteoid to join my organization. I'll go ahead and view that org. Let me go ahead and actually sign out of my first one there. And I will sign in using Invivo Courses. It says that's the company that has invited me. I can go ahead and confirm, yes, I do want to join that company. That's where I need to be. And we can click yes. And it'll bring us right into the account. Now, the main difference here on the invitee side is that they come into the organization as a user. So you can see that here in the top right. I do not have admin permissions here in my dropdown, so there's no way for me as a user to access that page. So that's a nice limitation, especially if we don't necessarily want specific users to access that page. And in the My Products here, I'm only going to be able to see specific products that I've been given access to. In this case, none, because I haven't assigned them yet. So I'll go ahead and sign out of this guy here, and we'll go right back in to our main account. We'll close down these guys here. All right, so jumping back in as an admin user, coming to our admin and then our organization page, we can now see that Invivo Courses has successfully joined our organization. If we click them, it's going to go ahead and open a right side panel for us here, where we can hover over the different perpetual sets that we have available that we can provide access to. Let's go ahead and give them a set of 50 in there. So we just toggle it on for them. As well, we can adjust their plan level. So I do have an available premium level plan that I can provide them with. Now, linking up our perpetual licenses with our Invivo Workspace subscription is a great way to encompass the best of both worlds, where we have the desktop application to utilize as well as a more robust Invivo Workspace when it comes to the size of your case dashboard. Down here at the left, we can see I'm at a 200 gigabyte size, and omitting things like sharing limitations and case expiration. So if we are doing a lot of encompassing workspace platform features into our use, it's great to toggle on those subscription plans as well. And then we can just hit update all. So we've got that user in our organization. We went through the invite process and through what it looks like to be invited to an organization and accept that invitation. If you're not seeing that invitation, we also have our notifications up here. So me as the admin, I can see, hey, they accepted it and they've joined our company. And now we can go ahead, they can go ahead and access the Invivo desktop app or whatever specific licensing or subscription we provided them access to, and proceed with download, install, and activation from there. Again, if we go back to our products list, just to wrap us up here as we're rounding out the hour, if I come to our Invivo desktop selection where we're seeing that group of 50 here, if I go ahead and select it, again, if Invivo courses were to have activated it at any point, we would see that in the currently in use and our activation history as well. And it's a great way to make sure that we're able to manage both our licensing and the people in our organization, and an easy way for us to assign permission levels, whether that's to a single group of licenses across multiple locations, or by providing singular access to specific groups of licenses as they've been pooled out. Now, I know we likely have quite a few, or maybe a few questions in the queue. So I'm going to go ahead and pause here and pass things back to Mike to see if there are any questions or anything that we can go back through to help highlight what's new with the platform as well as what's new with the software.
All right, great job, Anna.
Thanks.
So first question, can you make implant brand auto remember for next time use?
Yes, that is an excellent question. So if we're jumping back into the software We could go back through and give a couple of quick pointers here on what I would typically train on and how I would recognize it. So typically in our arch view here, working on the mandibular arch, we have our arch spline in place. Now, in some cases, the nodes might be a little bit out of place, so we're not seeing the best slice panoramic view down below to isolate that nerve pathway. So the rule of thumb that I typically use when tracing this arch spline to get a really nice clear view of that pathway down below, we'll say on the left side in this example, is to follow what I call the little bubble on our axial view. So my nodes specifically, if I move this one and I lay my cursor down, hopefully you can see it, I can place that along the nerve pathway bubble, so to speak. And that will give us a nice clear view of the nerve canal down below. And if we're not seeing it, we can make quick adjustments here to get real-time improvements. Now this nerve path is pretty clear. So what I'm going to do to go ahead and trace that out is click New Nerve on our left side panel. And I'm just going to start at the top and place a couple of points with my mouse. Sometimes we see users put it a little further up or a little closer to the top of the nerve canal to make sure that we are wanting to maybe have a little bit more sensitivity to our software when it comes to recognizing how close we are to that nerve. So in the cross-sectional views where I've brought our green line over, I can see where my nerve is on the cross-sectional views. I can click once more. I like to exit out the menta foramen. That's not necessarily what everyone needs to do. That's just my own preference. And then I will right-click to finish that nerve canal. So now if I scroll through my cross-sectional views, I can make sure and kind of visualize that nerve canal. If I want to make it a little thicker, I can go ahead and select it and then hit modify. And I can also adjust the width of that nerve canal as well.
Okay. Couple more here. So one question related to, can I watch this video again later? I would like to collaborate cases directly with my local lab. So we have a YouTube channel, and we'll be releasing this webinar, the recording of this webinar on the channel within a week. And if you're signed up for our emails, you'll get a link when it's available. So we'll be in touch next week regarding that. And then another, this is an interesting comment question. So I only have one single office. I don't understand what the whole workspace platform is.
Sure. So I guess to put it in a couple of sentences in terms. So for Invivo Workspace, in its core functionality, it helps you to share and collaborate if you're wanting to do so, whether that's with a patient or an additional colleague using the file send file. So it's a digital integration with Invivo Workspace for that sharing element. Now, in addition to the sharing element, you have the ability to manage your software as well. So instead of having to reach out to us to move a license, as long as you're an admin user for your licensing, which it sounds like you might actually be, or most likely are, you're able to come here to either reinstall your software, access the installer, manage your licensing, deactivate if you need to, or have your IT deactivate certain workstations should you need to, right from the platform itself. So it's giving you the flexibility of managing the licensing or subscription that you have, as well as giving you that sharing component that it's always had. Good question.
Awesome. Yeah, great question. So a follow-up question from earlier regarding the viewer. We have hundreds of clients. So what would the license plan be for so many clients for using web-based viewer?
So the web-based viewer is encompassed within free accounts as well. So if you're sharing the cases out with your clients, they'll always have access to some version of the web viewer. Specifically in our non-paid viewer section, we are just seeing the section tab in particular, which typically meets most of the needs of people looking at these cases or wanting to have some sort of flexibility to maneuver through them. Now, the users themselves can most certainly opt in to paid subscription accounts, which give them more functionality when it comes to the web viewer. So they'll have access to things like the additional art section tab or implant model and gallery, where we can see some workup data if your teams have done some of that provisional planning or taken saved images. So there's different combinations that we can most certainly look into to help meet your specific needs. So if you want to reach out, we can always connect with you afterwards. But there's always a set free viewer on the web viewer side of things. So regardless of what option we're opting into, we'll have a solution for them.
Terrific. All right, a couple more. They keep coming in. This is awesome. Okay. So are there links to other animals and any way to view the mouth at the same angle as an OPG? And the way I saw it was from the back of the jaw towards the front in 3D view, if that makes sense.
We can try to simulate that. Yeah. Let me discard a few of these cases here. I know the vet case I had on was full body. So let me just grab one that focuses more on the head and neck. So orientation specifically is something that is set by the user. So if you prefer to see an image in a certain way, you can always reorient the patient in that way. Specifically, when we're working with animals, the scan is never taken in the axial, as we're seeing here, which is what is normally how things are represented for our human anatomy scans. In most cases, anyway. Sometimes we do see, MRIs and full body scans. But typically when we're in our section tab here, this is where we can reorient things. So when we are specifically in the volume tab and wanting to approach it from certain directions right from the gate, rather than turning it, we can have it already oriented in that way. And then we can toggle on our different clippings from there. So hopefully that helped answer your question. There's obviously, we see, like I mentioned before, the arch tab used in the same way that it's used on the human anatomy structures. So we can isolate things and create kind of a similar panoramic image down here below as we maneuver things. But feel free to let me know if I did not answer that question thoroughly.
Okay, and a couple more. When will the Straumann TLC and BLC implants be added to the implant library?
That is an excellent question, and one that we are actively working on. We can most certainly make sure that you are on the contact list if you want to leave your info in the Q&A for us there to make sure that you're notified once that release is released in our implant library. It should be hopefully soon here.
I'm taking note of the person who asked that so we can let them know for sure.
Perfect. Yep, that one's on our radar.
Right. Any new functionality using AI? Great question, guys.
Yeah, we did go over a bit of the AI functionality. Right now, it is specifically focused on our 3D analysis tab. We do have plans to incorporate some automated functionality in other tabs of the base software. But when we're looking at 3D analysis specifically, as I mentioned before, we're looking, again, grain of salt, we've got a Beagle open here in front of us. If we click create tracing, this auto tracing function is here. So as long as we're working with the Steiner analysis specifically, all of those landmarks and profiles that are a part of that build and configuration will be automatically traced for you here. And usually with, I kind of have a mid-tier, I would say, graphics card. So even with a mid-tier, it goes very quickly. So usually about 30 seconds on that auto tracing. If you have an even higher powered CPU or graphics card as well, it will actually be quite quick. So that's where our AI static engine currently is in play, but we'll likely see some developments to see it reach other tabs as well.
Awesome. I'm replacing my 13-year-old CBCT. Do I need to hold on to my acquisition software to hold on to my license? I'm getting a new Plan Mecca that I think has 2 acquisition computers included with it. I think I have 2 perpetuals and 5 other licenses. I got my original Invivo with my OP300 13 years ago.
That is an excellent question for your CBCT provider in particular. Now, if you're keeping your OP300, I would assume you're keeping your licenses, but different agreements are different between different CBCT. partners that we do have. So it would be a good idea to check with them first, especially if you're planning to sell them back that specific machine. So I would defer to the CBCT provider for the OP300.
Great. With the latest version of Invivo Desktop, my system crashed and I had to be manually backed off to the previous version. Is this usually an indication I will not be able to install future desktop versions?
No, absolutely not. That is actually an issue that we've identified with one of our latest releases, actually the one that I'm on, and we should have a patch update to fix that issue shortly here. But you can continue to install Invivo, and if you'd like, you can install it on 7.2.2, which I imagine is what you have installed. There's no issue there.
So before I go to the next question, the person who had the question about the OP300, he said, not keeping my OP300.
Gotcha. Again, I would just reach out to them just to confirm if you're able to keep those licenses, because we unfortunately don't have the best answer for that one.
Okay. And then regarding the implant library question, that person sent us his email. He said, I placed Straumann BLX and BLC implants. Keep me updated so I can plan surgical guides. So we'll keep that person informed. Thank you so much for letting us know.
Absolutely.
And then please DM me if you want to sell CBCTs to me. Okay. And then there was one more question in the Q&A. Please show real quick how to incorporate the STL into the DICOM.
Sure. I think that'll be a good one to wrap us up here. I'll discard these guys here. And then let me grab a quick case where I have both our STL as well as the DICOM itself. We're going to open this one here. Now, similar to how you would get those STLs exported, you're going to see them in the different arches, your maxillary and then your mandible. So as I mentioned before, we're coming right into the restoration tab specifically. Now this one already has a few in there, but we'll go ahead and we'll click import stone model. And then we're going to navigate to the specific STLs that we are looking to incorporate into this scan. So you're going to want to know where they are, whether they're on your desktop or elsewhere saved. I believe, yeah, we'll go back one. There's our upper. It's going to ask us to identify which one this is. And yes, it is the maxilla. We'll go ahead and replace the one that's there. And now it's going to put it in kind of an odd position to start. Sometimes it does it in the nice position. Sometimes it's quite off. But usually we'll go ahead and we'll register it to the CT. And it's going to provide us with a series of steps to walk through where we are essentially identifying points on both the model as well as our CT scan. So my rule of thumb is a central point here on either 8 or 9. And then I'll go ahead and I'll rotate my volume since we're working on the maxilla here. I'm going to zoom in. And I like to utilize occlusal points for my registration process. You can most certainly use buccal aspects as well, as long as there's not too much scatter on your scan. So usually the occlusal surfaces are pretty good to pick in particular. So I'll go ahead and pick this cusp here. Oh, I apologize. I got to go back. I made a mistake. So we'll click restart. So my first point here on 8 or 9, I got ahead of myself there. I'll pick that matching point here, right about there. And then we'll go to our occlusal surfaces. So I got a little overzealous. And again, here I'm just picking some cusps that are notably the same in our model as well as on our scan itself. So you can pick more than 3. 3 should suffice in most cases. Sometimes more points adds to the accuracy of your registration, but we can go ahead and hit perform. And it should approximate based off of those points that we have placed. And then from there, we can then fine tune. So if we're a little bit off, which I think we might be just a tiny bit back, which we can see in our 2D, we can go ahead and make a quick adjustment. Rotate around. Bring it forward a bit. We can see that in real time move on our 2D as well. we can scroll through and make further adjustments here. So that's the general process of the registration method. So finding your STLs, importing them in, following the instructions here in our register stone models, placing your matching points between the models and your DICOM, and then doing any necessary fine-tuning from there. If we were happy with this, we would go ahead and click done. Perfect. I hope that helps. We can link the training video too as well that focuses on the restoration tab if you would like to share your email.
Awesome. And looks like we just have one last question, then we'll be wrapping up. Please demonstrate importing a DICOM into both Workspace and the app.
Gotcha. Yeah. So we did a little bit of that earlier here. So Workspace, as well as I assume the desktop application. Let's go ahead and discard this one here. So we did upload a case. We sent it via send file to our Invivo Workspace account. Now I'm logged in under a different user here in my software, but if we are wanting to bring that file down from Invivo Workspace, whether it's a received file or a case that we've sent to our case dashboard ourselves, the difference here is we're jumping right into the desktop application and selecting Browse File from Invivo Workspace. So this is going to give us the same patient folder view that we would have seen in our web application side of things, where we can go ahead and drop open the different case files and see what is inside those patient folders. This one happens to be the orthodontic case that we were working on previously. So we can go ahead and say that's the one I'm looking for. We can double click it and it will go ahead and download and bring the file down locally for you without you actually having to go to the Invivo Workspace platform to bring it down. So that's the nice part about that integration. We've got the scan already pulled up. We've just pulled it right from our case dashboard. If we wanted to do some fine tuning to our planning, capture a couple images, maybe edit some of the things that are already planned, we can then do the same process, which is file, send file, and then go ahead and save it as the applicable file type, and then re-upload it back to that file or that patient folder.
Okay. The person actually wrote, I mean files we get from others on CD.
Oh, I don't necessarily have a CD, but typically once you place the CD in the disk drive, it's going to show up in your file manager on most OSs kind of as an additional drive here. So usually it's like a D drive for your disk. And then you would just double click to open it, kind of like I am here in my demo cases folder. And then you're selecting the specific case file or folder from the CD itself. So let's say, for instance, it's the implant. I have my implant planning cases here. Here's the file. I can double click and it's going to go ahead and launch Invivo for me. Now, if it's not launching Invivo for you when you do this, this is just a Windows preference that we can help you set up to tell Windows to recognize either DICOM or other .inv files as, hey, open this in Invivo for me. That's something that we can set up pretty easily. But that's generally the logistics of that. And then from here, we can save that locally if we would like to do so. So that way we don't have to worry about losing the CD.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, everyone. Actually, one more question, and then I think we'll wrap up. How about where they come in DICOM with like 300 DICOM files?
Yeah. So when we're looking at DICOM specifically, those multi-file sets, I think, let me take one down from Workspace. It's the same type of process. We should be able to select one of those single files from all of those sliced data sets, and Invivo will recognize the full set as that 3D scan. So if I can get this one brought down from Invivo Workspace real quick, I can show you just an example of that multi-file set. So we can do a quick save as. We'll save it as the multi-file. We'll just say it's a test file. And we're going to go ahead, go to our desktop, create a quick folder for it just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to save this here. Uncompress is the usual methodology, just as a quick overview for your multi-file saves. I'm going to close this out. Close this one down as well. So if I go on the desktop here, we can see, let's pretend this is our CD disk drive. We go into that folder. We're seeing all of those DCM slices. This makes up that full 3D scan. We have a couple ways. You can double click, which should prompt Invivo or TX Studio from there. You can drag and drop on your desktop icon, depending on what application you're wanting it to open with, if you have multiple. But typically, just a quick double click. Now, again, if Windows is not recognizing your .dcm files as DCM or is unsure which application to open those types of files with, we can help set those preferences or make sure that those preferences for Windows are set up to recognize the file types as please open in Invivo and not, something like Adobe or Explorer type of thing.
Awesome. All right. Well, Anna, thank you so much. You did a great job. I thought this went really, really well. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us today. We'll be in touch with every single one of you individually next week, and we'll also be uploading the webinar on the YouTube channel, so be on the lookout for that. And hope you all have a great weekend. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And yeah, take care.